Brad Evans, part of the new movement to Westwood One Sports, which took over for Infinity Sports Network. Also hosts BetMGM Tonight with Pat Boyle, 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. Let's bring Brad in. Hi, Brad.
Hola, amigos. How you gentlemen doing?
Howdy.
So, Brad, thanks for coming on with us today.
Yeah, likewise. Appreciate it.
So, I guess the first question, and we want to be fair because we've been talking a lot about ISN and the close of ISN and that network being closed. What was your first reaction when you heard you were part of the lineup and part of the network taking over for ISN?
Honestly, I was a bit shocked. It was a great privilege and an honor that our show was chosen. I couldn't believe that Infinity Sports was no longer to be in business, and they decided to lean on the services of this jackass. There were so many talented people at Infinity, extraordinary voices in the industry. And again, I'm just ecstatic that I'm able to, get on the horn every single day, express my opinions about the world of sports. And I'm hoping the people, sadly and unfortunately, no longer, a part of Infinity and lost their gigs will snap back and storm back with a vengeance soon. So, it was a bit bittersweet to say the least. But to be honest, guys, that's the nature of this business.
Brad, the one thing we really talked about was some of the legacy talent that was left behind from ISN. And this has kind of been like my first question out of the box has been where sports media and content is now shifting in a way here in 2026 to more leaning into, as you guys do on Westwood One Sports, to the gambling and wagering side of the sports world, for example. So with that in mind, though, Brad, perhaps though, because I'm sure that people have complained that sports radio is now becoming one giant commercial for the gaming industry plus television too. But how do you, though, as a host, keep the show authentic for the fan who wants to talk about their team without being bombarded by the point spreads and over-unders, though? So how do you kind of, in a way, balance the two out, though, on your program, for example, or on the network in general?
Yeah, great question. And look, I've been in business for over 20 years. I worked at Yahoo Sports, is where I really cut my teeth in the industry as I'm really a fantasy football voice. And eventually that rolled into bracketology, which I still do to this day. Of course, I cover fantasy football as well. And then that morphed into gambling, with pass befalling in a late 20 teens. I'm like, hey, we got to dive head first into this. And I was still at Yahoo at the time. I'm somebody that's always, worn multiple hats in this business and taken great pride in that. I kind of speak, even though I'm in my late 40s, I would like to think I kind of speak to various generations and various content consumers in the business because that's how I kind of grew up. In the overall business, whether behind a mic, in front of a camera, with my fingers rattling on the keyboard. I've always, again, worn those multiple hats and thinking in multidimensional ways, serving gaming audiences, serving as well the common sports fan, serving audiences across sports genres in general, whether it's college basketball this time of year, along with the NFL, whether it's Major League Baseball in season during the summertime, whether it's college football as well. You got to be well versed, and that's something again that I've hung multiple hats on, and really appreciated the opportunity to grow and develop in those areas, and that's where I think a lot of this is going is in the media business, particularly the radio business. If you want to speak to the Gen Zers that are starting to enter the workforce right now, if you want to speak to millennials, whether the younger millennial part of that generation, the older millennials now into their early 40s, or for me, who's kind of a borderline millennial and a Gen Xer, there's a way to do that. And it's, just kind of touching on a little bit of everything and playing in various sandboxes. So, the premise of BetMGM Tonight, we mix in a little bit of everything. At our core, we're still like 75% traditional sports talk. We work in and sprinkle a little betting in here and there. We react in real time to the games that are going on with updated live lines and live totals and reacting to that. And how does that play into the general sports mind and sports line of traditional sports talk. We lean into that. We kind of blend it all together. Hell, we even dabble in fantasy football because I love it so much. So we speak various languages, and you got to be ultimately versatile in this business if you want to, again, speak to the masses and achieve the ultimate success. And that's having longevity overall, no matter what genre of the sports media industry that you're in.
So 5 hours on the radio, Monday through Friday. That is grueling radio. Can you talk about kind of the preparation? A lot of people don't get this. Like Callan and I have been in the business. You've been in the business a long time. Talk about prepping a 5-hour show, because that is difficult.
It is. Now, truth be told, we're not on air for all 5 hours. So we always re-rack that last hour with some of the highlights of the previous 4 hours. 4 hours is still a long time. I can say that. I got my 5 hour energies within arm's reach. I got a pot of coffee on the other side of the Casa de Evans studios. I'm keeping the caffeine flowing because I got to keep the energy up. My nickname is the Big Noise. I've had that since high school. I wonder why. I'm such a wallflower, guys. But as a result, I expend a lot of energy in my opinions that I formulate, whether it's something that I've preconceived and thought about throughout the entire day or just shooting from the hip. It doesn't really matter. I want to stay brisk. I'm with the show flowing. My co-host, Pat Boyle, an extraordinarily talented young host, does a really good job of keeping pace and tempo as well. We work in some interviews. We try to bring in big names. That helps alleviate some of the burden on our shoulders and really on our tongues for the 4 hours live that we're on the air. But I'm a big believer in segmentation, and I'm a big believer as well in reacting to events in real time. So naturally on game nights, it makes it really easy. Like the national championship game the other night with Indiana, hoisting the hardware against the Miami Hurricanes. We would do live check-ins on the game. We would check the temperature of what was going on, give her, just off the cuff reactions and feelings. That could be a segment. So if you reacted to games in real time, I think the 4 hours is a breeze. It's on days like today, for example, on a hump day, where you got to get really creative. And we got a phenomenal team that believes in segmentation. We like to kind of gamify the gamification in a way by coming with our own on-air games that we play with our phenomenal producer, Brandon Combs. Andrew Williams has a lot to say behind the scenes as well. So we just kind of brainstorm and come up with wacky ideas, throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. And the other big key is that we're a highly interactive show. So people get a hold of us, whether through more modern means like via social media platforms or just traditional phone calls. And we take people's phone calls live and we react to those phone calls live. So we're kind of a smorgasbord of sports talk. And I think that's the best way to approach it, because when you, attack with a plate in hand and you're scooping it up from the buffet, the 4 hours, it's a breeze.
Brad, I live in Southern California, in San Diego to be exact. And if you say the word gambling out here, it's almost like a death sentence. I said this to Bart Winkler last week here on Press Row. But Brad, I think more importantly, because our network at one point, and I've said this for 3 weeks in a row, but we had a deal for a bit with a prediction market named Novig, who they have kind of, they're in a way they were legalized in like 35 states though. Then slowly they began to peel back the layers though. They left California in December. They left New York, where Nick lives, like 3 o'clock in the morning, the first week of the new year, roughly right before the new year ended. And we got a very much, blatant yawn emoji response from them when we said that we couldn't work with them anymore, because they literally left Media Market A, New York, Media Market B, LA/California in general. But also now, Brad, with the rise of Kalshi and Polymarket, who are now being sued, and we're going to talk about them later in our show. So I guess, though, Brad, how much, though, of your job is to navigate the legal side of the wagering markets as much as the on-field side? But also, are we reaching a point maybe where the media has to be more careful maybe than those who are actually placing bets on sports, in your opinion?
Yeah, you got to toe a very delicate line, to say the least. It's still kind of a bit of the Wild Wild West out there with the prediction markets, and that sector of the business really flourishing, and there's zero regulation, and that's the biggest issue that's going on right now. And that could reach a point eventually. We'll see what happens during the political midterms. If a blue wave were to occur, for example, and maybe that's a point of emphasis of something they'll attack in some way to offer regulation in those specific markets. So it's up to the politicians in DC and in really certain states to ultimately decide the fate of what the future of the prediction markets world looks like. For our show, we're sponsored by BetMGM. It's a regulated book. They're not in the predictions market industry. We focus exactly on that. I'm a gambler. I live in the great state of Illinois. Sports betting is 100% legal here. And, we definitely have a toe in that water. We're speaking to the 30-plus states where there is a legalized and regulated sports gambling that is out there. And no, we're not going to ever dabble in the poly markets, the Kalshis of the world. That's a totally different Pandora's box to open. I'm not willing to go there. I'm going to stick with the regulated markets, and I greatly appreciate our sponsor in BetMGM.
So, for instance, like when you saw the NBA gambling scandal, or you saw the point shaving scandal right now that's going on in college basketball, can you guys talk those situations, or is that going a line? How does that work kind of on your guys' show when those situations kind of came up?
We dove headfirst into it. There's no restrictions at all. I mean, what they were doing is nefarious activities, right? And as a result, like when somebody's laying $450,000 down on NCANT, that might be a red flag. And, we talked about it. We talked about some possible solutions. It's an imperfect system. I think even, BetMGM would probably say that there'll be some changes here and there on a state-by-state basis of what's going to be allowed. Are there going to be limits that are going to be placed on the player props markets in particular? And that's really a specialty of mine. Growing up in a world of fantasy football, I love the player props. And for a lot of people, that's how the gaming audiences were raised, first on fantasy. So it's a natural foray then into the player props market and sports betting, away from the signs and the totals that some people may not really understand or get. But hey, I understand Drake May over under 259.5 pass yards. Oh, that's easy. Oh, yeah, it's way over, man. I'm taking that all day long. You kidding me? He's going to let up the Denver Broncos this week. So I think for a lot of people, they follow that. It's still just something that eventually everybody's have to come to an agreement on what the proper regulation is to prevent instances of the various matters that have been attached with the NBA and some of the other sports that are out there, the collegiate ranks as well, placing limits on player props. I think first and foremost, like $100, for example, is a maximum bet that you could make, not $100,000 on that Drake May proposition. So it doesn't entice, people that may be able to sway that action on the field and behind the scenes. So yeah, we can unpack all of that. We have very frank and direct conversations. No limitations on expressing our opinion when it's tied to that. And again, thank you, BetMGM.
I just want to follow up on one more. Obviously, the Guardians scandal, also with the pitching. Yeah. What do you make of? And this drove Callan and I crazy when we saw that you could bet on a strike or a ball inside
first pitch. Yeah.
What did you make of that? Because I don't understand that. I find that a little confusing because anyone could spike a pitch like supposedly he was doing, and that led to money. So what do you make of betting on pitches in baseball?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very granular market. But again, if you set limits on stuff like that, all systems go. I mean, to say, if you want to bet on a closer, Emmanuel Clase to come in and throw a heater right down the middle of the plate. And you can even bet on over under miles per hour on pitch in some of the regulated markets, which is bananas, but kind of fun. Have I dabbled in it? Maybe. But if the line's like 99.5 miles an hour, and you know it's going to be a pressure pack situation, maybe it's against a marquee opponent, you're like, oh man, he's got to have some extra giddy up in that fastball today. Yeah, great, go for it. But you can't wager more than, say, $100 or $500 on that pitch. So it prevents the enticement of maybe an umpire being in the mix there for balls and strikes. Somebody that is related to the team in some form or fashion. Maybe it's an interpreter on the team that may know the tendency of a specific player and their pitch that they're going to throw the very first time that's out there. So all this can be solved so easily, gentlemen, with limits. And I think we're going in that direction because, again, it's the most plausible and sensible outcome.
Brad, I'm glad, though, that Nick brought up the Guardian scandal because we've talked about the NBA gambling scandal, the point shaving in basketball, then now with the Guardians. And obviously, people think of Pete Rose, though, but I also think, though, recently of like Shane Pinto of the Ottawa Senators, who was popped half a season for gambling. Evander Kane was ratted out by his ex-wife for almost being suspended for gambling. Brad, how though, if you were able to, say be commissioner for a day, how would you go about letting athletes wager, but what kind of restrictions would be on them if they were, placing a bet maybe on a game somewhere else in the sports world, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really easy. I would allow it, just not on the sport that you are participating in. So if you're an NHL player, I mean, that's all bets off. You cannot wager on a single drop of the puck and trying to make some bucks event that is out there, whether you are a part of that team or not. It's off the table immediately. And if you are caught doing so, there's going to be harsh repercussions as a result. It could be a 3 strikes and you're out kind of rule. It could be, a high fine for the first offense. It could be a higher fine and longer suspension for the second offense. Third time it happens, you're gone. You get tossed to the game. I mean, period, end of story. That may be a sensible approach that I would implement if I were commissioner for a day in whatever sport it is. And, a lot of people are really debating from the college side more than anything else. The NCAA is going kind of back and forth on what they want to do. Should this punter from Iowa State be able to wager on a game involving the Minnesota Golden Gophers?
Right.
As long as he doesn't participate in that game against Minnesota, let him, possibly wager on it. Or you just say, look, if it's, a college football game, you can't bet on it, period, end of story. I mean, that's the debate that is there. I mean, again, if I were commissioner for a day, if you're in a sport at whatever level, you cannot bet on the sport that you are playing in, period, end of story. But if you want to wager that punter from Iowa State on a Major League Baseball game, go for it. You want to wager on the NFL? It's not the same level. You have no influence over it. Go for it. You want to wager on a basketball game? Totally permissible and allowable. Because if they're of legal age, they are a citizen of this country. If they live in a legal state, there should be no wall built that restricts them from doing what a common citizen can do. So it's just my 2 cents. Just don't play in your own sport, but you can play in other sports. That's totally allowable.
All right. We'll take a step away from that for a second. But I'm kind of curious how you got in the business, because you said you've been in the business a long time. So how did you get in the business? I'm kind of curious so people can hear.
I slept my way to the top, gentlemen. That's how I did.
Great answer.
No. Truth be told, it's a crazy story. I started as a educator, believe it or not. I ruined impressionable young minds at the high school level in Central Illinois. I graduated from the U of I, University of Illinois, in an undergrad. And my graduate my bachelor's degree. I have a graduate degree as well, but my master's degree was in history with an emphasis in secondary education. That was my minor, basically. And then my master's degree is in geoscience with an emphasis in meteorology from Mississippi State University. So I'm not playing jack nor squat of what I paid for in college, primarily to my current profession. Now, I do work in a little weather nerd terminology from time to time when it's applicable for some of those snow games, some of those major, weather events that impact tackle football games across the board. But I started as an educator. I taught at-risk students at alternative high school. People not familiar with that kind of student base. These are kids that some of them get kicked out. Some are not a good fit. Some are just looking for another opportunity at, the educational level that they're at, the high school level for me. And they want to get their GED. They want to get their high school diploma. And they just want an alternative to what is going on right now. So I had some interesting kids, to say the least. Some kids that had, some rough past. Some kids that were in the court system, some that were not. So it was a really interesting mix of humanity, and I learned a tremendous amount as an educator in my 6 years here in Illinois. They taught me a lot. Hopefully, I taught them a couple of things along the way, and I was doing that. And then on the side, I was writing for the site called TalentedMrRoto.com. It blew up. And that was run by Matthew Berry. Of course, everybody knows who he is in the industry and kind of in general. If you're a fan of Sunday Night Football, the bald guy that's on Sunday Night Football, that's Matthew Berry. So Berry got started, with his site. The site takes off. And then eventually Yahoo came calling and Berry goes, hey, you should talk to Brad Evans. He's one of our senior editors, one of our main writers. And, again, there's an entire backstory how I got attached to Barry and the site. And I don't want to belabor it. And I interviewed with Yahoo, flew out, I guess nailed it. I was one of 2 hires at the time, and we took off from there. So that was in 2006. We were the first ever live show on the internet with Fantasy Football Live. And I remember doing that on campus at University of Illinois in some deep, dark studio. And there's a camera in front of me. I'm just talking about football and fantasy, having a good old time with Brandon Funston and a couple other guys on camera. And I remember after the show was over, I hear this like eruption in my IFB in my ear. Yeah, F yeah, hell yeah, high five and all this stuff. I'm like, why is everybody so excited? We just made history. I'm like, we did? What did we do? We were the first ever live show on the internet, regardless of genre, talking about sports. I'm like, oh, awesome. That's great. And it took off from there. And of course, we did that. I was on that for 13 years until they laid me off in 2020. So, yeah, I've done a little bit of everything. I've been a show creator. I've been an executive producer, writer, editor. Hell, guys, I've sold shows to Crown Royal. So again, multiple hats. I wear them. I got to protect this very gold dome because I don't have enough sunscreen applied to it. But it's a good time of the year. I don't have to worry about that.
I love it. Brad, what would be like one piece of advice that you would give to somebody out there watching who wants to try to get into the sports radio or sports media business in general? What would it be?
Yeah, look, again, that multiple hats, reference I keep talking about, it is very applicable. You got to be ultra versatile. And this is an old school, this kind of dates me, but you guys might know the name. I don't know if you remember Jose Oquendo.
Yeah.
Back in the 1980s. Guy played everywhere, right? You want to be a Swiss Army knife. You want to be a multi-dimensional position guy, and that's Jose Oquendo, what he was. And that's what you should strive to be in the industry. You got to learn how to write. You got to learn how to carry yourself on camera. You got to learn how to have a conversation behind the mic and just be a genuinely good person. That's the other big key in this. Establish relationships. Don't, worry or, fret over about cold calling some people. Have a conversation and be real. Be you. Because when you are genuine and when you are authentic, I think it really speaks volumes about how approachable and accessible you can be and how sellable you could be to an overall audience. So again, be multidimensional, be versatile, be you, and be kind. Those are the biggest piece of advice I can give.
So
Love it.
before having you on, I actually was a reader of the Gaming Juice. Actually.
Oh, sweet.
So I actually
You're
was
the one.
So I was a reader of the site. Can you talk about that? Because I remember, because I saw it across LinkedIn. I saw you putting this site together, and I saw you posting about it. Where was the idea, the formation of that?
Yeah, so I got laid off. I've been laid off like 3 times in my career. It's kind of the state of the industry right now in its ever evolving way. So I got laid off from Yahoo at the end of 2019, started my own site, and I actually sold out of that after about a year. Then I got back into business with my guy, Dave Morgan, who I call the OG of Yahoo Sports. So he worked under Jimmy Bottaro, who now runs ESPN. I know Jimmy really well. Great dude, does a phenomenal job at ESPN. And Dave, kind of called me out of the blue. We kind of kept in touch here and there. And he goes, hey, I got this idea with this company called Boom Press. Maybe you could start your own site. I'm like, sure. So he kind of gave me the keys, got the site up and running. And we had a meeting with a small team. And he goes, anybody got any ideas of what do you want to call it? I don't know how I pulled it, but I pulled it straight from my ass. And I said, the Gaming Juice. That sounds good. Sure. Can we create an awesome graphic? Not a problem. And they did. I'm like, oh, that'll look great on a t-shirt or a hat. Works for me. And we took off from there. So started with Dave Morgan and a guy named Joe Lago, who's a former Yahoo as well. He's now at Sports Business Journal. Took that gig about 6 months ago. But yeah, it's me now entirely. So I build, I edit, I cut pictures, I write. I do a little bit of everything, and the great team at Boom Press runs all the bells and whistles behind the scenes. And Dave, of course, still very much of my life, acting CEO right now at Boom Press. So that was the impetus of it. I love writing. That's, how I got started in the business, and, crafting an opinion, in my overall opinion, is a necessity to help hone and craft other opinions in other forms of the business, whether behind the mic or in front of the camera. So I want to stay as sharp as possible when it comes to writing. And yeah, plus I just enjoy, scribbling some blurbs and making some random pop culture references when discussing over under on, RJ Harvey rush yards. So it's kind of fun.
Brad, do you have a good Jim Rome story? Because obviously Romey got his start here in San Diego on what was Extra Sports 690 back in the day. That was our Murderer's Row for who knows how long here with sports talk radio here in Southern California, San Diego, and then Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico. But do you have a good Rome story you can share real quick?
I don't, because you know why? I have never met Jim Rome in person. So,
what? Wow.
Well, look, I've only been with the new Westwood One Sports Network for a brief time. I mean, we flipped the switch. I was at the BetMGM Network. That is no longer. So December 29th, we all jumped on board. I heard Rome's name on our just kind of introductory call behind the scenes, and Jim spoke up real quick, and I'm like, oh, this is surreal. Jim Rome. I'm actually going to be following him along with, Pat Boyle. Our show is going to be following the great legendary Jim Rome. I was floored by that, but I have not physically met him in person. I think I've seen his lovely long flowing locks, and very envious that he still has, active follicles, because I would kill for that. I've seen him a couple times on Radio Row's various points in my life over the years, but I have never shook his hand. I've never actually had a face-to-face exchange. But I will remedy that soon once we all can gather and get in the flesh. And there could be a dozen beverages shared in the process.
Yes.
So,
man.
So are you guys going to be taking the network to the Super Bowl and Radio Row? Do you know if you guys are going or what the plan is for that?
Yeah, some of the shows are going to be there. I don't think our show is going because we're going to have some other plans around the NCAA tournament. And to be honest, if I had a choice between Super Bowl, and I've covered the Super Bowl 8 times in my career, and I love it. Trust me. I love Radio Row. I love the chaos. I love the madness. I love seeing and meeting new people all the time, but my jam, my lifeblood, what really gets things moving in my world is the NCAA tournament. And there is no better place than watching the NCAA tournament in the first weekend, wall-to-wall basketball, people, wiping the sleep out of their eyes and shaking off the hangover from the night before, than being in Sin City at a BetMGM or MGM property. And usually we're in Mandalay Bay, and they got an awesome sports book there. They set us up, and I'm watching, reacting in real time. I'm firing off bets, and I'm hanging with my people. So ultimately, that's probably where I'm going to be come the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. I think there might be some plans for next year's Super Bowl. We'll see. But this year, I'm not going to be there. But Nick Costos, who I love and adore, is going to be there. And of course, the legendary Jim Rome will be on location representing Westwood One Sports. So can't wait for those guys.
I love it. Brad, before we let you go, man, where can people find the show and where can they find you on the web?
Yeah, the show is on 300 plus terrestrial radio stations nationwide, Monday through Friday. It's called BetMGM Tonight, 6 to 11 p.m. Eastern time. You can stream it everywhere. We stream on X. You just look up BetMGM Tonight. I'm also streaming at Noisy Huevos on my personal page on X. YouTube as well, the BetMGM Tonight YouTube channel. You can find the show there. We're on Sirius XM as well, channel 375. So you have access to that terrific platform, which I worked for a couple of years back in the day. You can listen to the show there, again, Monday through Friday from 6 to 11 p.m. Eastern time. Meanwhile, all my written content, the bracket big board is back and in full effect. Yeah, all kinds of new fancy schmancy upgrades that we just implemented. No lie, today on this Wednesday, it is live right now at thegamingjuice.com. Going to be updating it every single day now through Selection Sunday with all of my college basketball content. Going to be rolling out there. My NFL content as well. Already have my AFC Championship playoff picks live on the site. So check out thegamingjuice.com. Folks, it's 100% free. And again, you can check me out at Noisy Huevos on X and maybe on your local street corner where I'm always doing all kinds of tricks.
Okay, one last question. I forgot to ask it. The Twitter handle. Can you explain that? Because Callan and I were trying to figure out the Twitter handle.
Okay, so it's kind of a mixed bag. My nickname, as I said earlier on the broadcast, is the Big Noise. How I got that, I grew up in Champaign, Illinois, where the University of Illinois is, and I lived down the street from a really good friend of mine about a block away. I have a loud, obnoxiously loud and booming voice. I've always had this. And I would just step outside. I'd be talking to my wiener dog or my mom or my dad or my sister or whatever. And they could hear me down the street. And I remember one of the older brothers, there was a family of three brothers, the Kleins. I would go down and what Jim Klein, I remember, said to me, "Man, Brad, I could hear you from, down the street. I could hear your loud ass up there." He goes, "You know what you are? You're nothing but a big noise." It stuck. So there's Big Noise. That's how I got the nickname. I didn't come up with it. I didn't give it to myself. It's been a part of me since I was 14, 15 years old. So sorry, America. So there's the noisy part. Now, where's the Huevos come in? I came up with this idea, probably 15, longer than that, almost 20 years ago, called Team Huevos. And if you know anything, I took 4 years of Spanish. I don't remember jack nor squat. I remember Donde está el baño, which was really important.
Where's the bathroom at?
Yeah, where's the bathroom? You got to know that.
Yes.
I love tequila. I grew up in San Antonio for a while too before I moved to Champaign. So, Latino and Latina culture is really ingrained in me. From South Texas in those days. I made a lot of trips to Mexico over the years. Absolutely love the country dearly. So the Huevos part, it's slang for balls. Yes. For people that don't know it, because people are like, "Oh, it's eggs." Yeah, it's eggs.
It's
for balls, like cojones. So what I came up with was Team Huevos. You got to have the Huevos to make a certain selection, whether in fantasy or in betting. And when I got laid off of Yahoo, I was Yahoo Noise on X. I'm like, I got to come up with something new. I can't be Yahoo Noise for the rest of my career. They let me go. Sorry. So I got to drop the Yahoo, and I'm like, all right, how about Noisy Huevos? Sure, whatever. I just roll with it, and it stuck. So that is the origin story of Noisy Huevos, mi amigo.
Love it.
That's great. And by the way, I just want to say, because Callan and I have been talking a lot about the ISN, and we weren't happy and all that frustration. But would you say, Callan, I think we've learned a lot about Westwood One Sports and BetMGM, and I've listened to your show a bunch of times, and I like it. It's great, and I will give it more chance now because I always give people benefits of the doubt. That's what we do on this show. Like, we might be mad about one thing, but that's why we had you on, so we can hear another perspective of what the network is that took over. So that was more the perspective we wanted to have to give people a chance to understand what Westwood One Sports was. So
yeah, and I'm super jacked for it, guys. I'm really excited. It's a brand new way of looking and catering to the modern sports consumer, and that's our entire goal. Like I told you guys, with the betting side, with the fantasy side, traditional sports talk side, in various ways to access us, whether it's via the phone, via on Twitter or X, in your comments there, YouTube, in the chats that we have. We want to be approachable. We want to be accessible. And we know that a lot of the fans that are listening to us, they have an opinion just like us. I'm just a dude. I'm just an idiot. I'm just a jackass with an opinion like anybody else. Do I get stuff wrong? Yes. Do I make donations to BetMGM on a regular basis? Absolutely. But I am going to be transparent. I'm going to be clear. And I'm going to try to make it as fun as possible because I always try to flip the script. When I'm listening to, sports talk stations or whatever, I'm like, is this a show that I would be able to consume and enjoy? Does it have energy? Does it have information? I'm a numbers nerd. Does it have the data to back up? Are they reacting observationally to events that are going on right now? Yes. Can I call up and yell at these idiots because they're idiots? Absolutely. It checks all those boxes, and those are the shows that I've always been a part of. Those are shows I want to create because it really caters to my identity, and that's what we try to exhibit and exude every single day on BetMGM Tonight, 6 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Check us out on the Westwood One Sports.
Brad, thank you. This was very informative. We had a good time, and hopefully we can talk sometime down the line for sure.
I appreciate the time, mi amigos, and I apologize if I'm doing damage to your ears on a nightly basis.
Not at all. It's fine. We appreciate you, man. Have a great rest of your day.
See you.
You too, guys. We'll see you.